Welcome back. In this video, I will show you how we can extract a URI parameter over Mule event. As part of our UHub API, the next service we are going to develop is Get COVID Cases by National ID, which URL is going to looks like domain name COVID v1/cases, and we are going to send a URI parameter. First, let's understand how the URI parameter looks like over URL. Then we will start with REST service development. Let me go to Postman and let me form the URL. It is going to be get based REST service, and the URL is going to be look like v1/cases, and URI parameters always we send as URL encoded values. URL encoded values means if we see here after domain or host port we have slash, and immediately we have base path, then we have subpath, and this URI parameter is also enclosed as URL with slash separator, whereas query parameters can be sent as question mark. Basically, these URI parameters defines the URL and also helps in routing the requests to the multiple resources or to the multiple URLs. That is the advantage over using URI parameters. If we have one single resource and we would like to send a parameter, then either we can go for URI parameter or query parameter. What I am trying to say is, if I include one URI parameter, it is going to act as a one REST service in the backend, one REST URL in the backend. If I try to send one more URI parameter, it is going to act as another URL, another REST service. It doesn't goes to this request URL. This is going to be another request URL. That means the URI parameters also defines the URL. If in case you wanted to have same resource to do some different jobs, then we can separate those jobs using this URL encoded URI parameters. But if we send any number of query parameters, still it always goes to the same REST service. But if we increase or decrease the URI parameters, the URL is going to be different, because URI parameters also part of URL. For now, let me send one value, but before that, let's implement the service. Right click on the source main Mule, create Mule configuration file, and choose name as Get COVID Case by National ID. Finish. Drag and drop a listener connector, and I am going to use same listener configuration and choose path as v1/cases. Then if we are going to get URI parameter over here, how we can read it? The reason is, for query parameters, we have key equal to value pair. For XML, we have key value pairs. And for even JSON also, we have key value pairs. But for URI parameters, we do not have any key to extract this value. So we always should keep a placeholder in the URL, since the URI parameters defines the URL and they are URL encoded. That's why we should keep the placeholder as a key here. I can say national ID, save. So what will happen when I make the request? After this cases, we have the value, and here after the cases, we have the placeholder. This 1, 2, 3, 4 will come and will be injected into the national ID key. So by using this key, we can able to access this value. This is very important. Now let me choose the method. Even though we don't choose, default method is going to be get. Let's save it and let me drag and drop a logger. Let me copy this key and let me print over here. Click on FX and attributes dot URI params. The data sense is helping us. Dot that specific key. Save. Let me add a breakpoint here and run the application. The application has deployed. Let's make the request. Request came, and if we look at URI parameters, we can see that value came and injected into the placeholder. Now we can make use of attributes dot URI params dot national ID. Say evaluate. We can see we would able to get the value. This looks good. As I said, these URI parameters defines the URL, right? If in case I do not send this, and if I say send, it is saying method not allowed because it is going to the post request. If we look here, we have post request and we have put request, but we don't have any URL or any service for get request. That means the URI parameters defines the URL. Whereas if we look at query parameters, if I send, it is working fine, 200 OK. If in case, if I remove all the query parameters, still it is 200 OK. But for URI parameters, if I remove this URI parameter, it is going to say resource not found or method not allowed. Why it is saying method not allowed? Because we already have some service on this URL, but we have different method on it. If we wanted to send multiple URI parameters, then again we need to separate with slash and send some other, like let me send as Mule. So if I send this, it will say no listener endpoint for this because we don't have any placeholder for this value. Also, it is URL encoded with the slash. We should have that placeholder in place. So come here and keep slash. Let me put as some TECH. Save. The application has deployed. Let's make the request. Request came. If we look at attributes, under URI parameters, now we can see two URI params. So we can write attributes.URI params.national ID to get it, and attributes.URI params.tech to get this value. So this is how we deal with URI parameters. That's all about this session. We'll see you in next session. Thank you. Happy learning.